Hi, today I'm making my beef stroganoff. I am not using any canned goods, just leftover steak, a little bit of mushrooms, onions, flour, butter, heavy cream. I did some garlic there, some sour cream Dijon, and beef broth, and Worcestershire. This is only for 2 people, so I'm actually halving my normal recipe. Here I'm just putting in the sliced meat with some olive oil. It's a leftover steak that I cooked pretty rare, knowing I'd use leftovers. So I'm just gonna get it warm, sear it kind of on either side for just a little bit. And this is really meat heavy. But I'm just winging it with leftovers. And since we don't have time to eat this really leftover the next couple days, I'm just halving the recipe so there isn't any leftover gravy here. So as it sautés, we are going to take it off and onto a plate soon and let it rest while we continue. All right, into the pan now, we are gonna add the 1 tablespoon of butter I have. Let that melt up. And then next I will be adding in onions and mushrooms. And I only did just a couple mushrooms because I'm gonna be the only one eating them. I do love mushrooms myself, so I do quite a bit just for me, but it's really not that many. And that is less than 1/4 of an onion, diced and chopped really, really small. We're gonna go ahead and just saute this, get the onions to be translucent, the mushrooms to start, sweating down on its own. And I'm chopping up some of these gigantic ones, so they'll be more bite size, but still easy to pick out just for me. Now that they've kind of sauteed a bit and they're ready, I am going to be adding in the garlic that I actually grated this garlic clove instead of minced it. I just find it to be faster. Just have a little tiny grater. I just grate it on up into the bowl. So let that become fragrant, not too long. You definitely don't want that garlic to burn or anything like that. And next to the pan, I'm going to be adding the flour, and I measured out 1/2 tablespoon of flour to make my roux. This is going to thicken up the gravy. Just get that all mixed in and browned a little bit. You can honestly do this for a couple minutes. You just want to make sure you're stirring constantly. You don't want it to burn. But I'm just going to do it just for a short time here before we start making that gravy. This is a great recipe to use leftover steak. You can use any fresh steak as well, and you would just sear them on both sides in the beginning, kind of like I already did. Here comes the beef broth. That's only 1/2 cup of beef broth, and it's going to start to thicken up relatively quick with that flour in there. Even only having 1/2 tablespoon really does it. Along with that beef broth, I'm going to add in heavy cream. That's 1/2. The recipe calls for 3/4 cup. That's 1/2 of it. I just eyeballed it in there, poured 1/2. And we're going to, everything comes together pretty quick at this point. It's going to keep thickening as you stir. And you can tell it's thickening up pretty good here. And what I'm going to do now is going to put in a little bit of that gravy into 2 tablespoons of sour cream. If I were to just dump in that cold sour cream, it's going to curdle and be really difficult, if impossible, to break up. So putting in that hot gravy into the sour cream and whisking it together, it comes out beautiful and smooth. And then we'll incorporate perfectly once you dump it in. Then you're going to stir that all around, get it all mixed together. And next you're going to add in your Worcestershire sauce as well as your Dijon mustard. Get that all stirred up nicely once I add them here. And that's really going to be plenty of gravy for 2 people. And we like, you know, quite a bit of gravy in our meals, so it's definitely not too small, but I won't be keeping any leftovers, so that'll be perfect. So here comes that Worcestershire and Dijon mustard. And the recipe calls for 1 tablespoon, so that's half a tablespoon. And the recipe calls for half a teaspoon of Dijon, so I'm using 1/4, so really just a tiny little bit. Just for a little tiny bit of flavor. Then you're just going to put in salt and pepper to taste. And then you'll see here in the video that then the final step is just to add back in your meat that you seared up. Mix it together. And then you're going to pair it with either egg noodles, which is our favorite, or on top of mashed potatoes. That's my mother-in-law's favorite way to eat it. I made a video with my daughter on how we make our homemade egg noodles. So those are in the fridge. I will pop that into the end of the video. Just cooking those up super fast. They only take 2 minutes to boil, so I'm gonna let this sit on the warming, so just not even really cooking, while I get those noodles ready. And then the second they're ready, pour over your portion over top of your noodles, and you're ready to eat. Here are those homemade noodles we did on video the other day, or actually yesterday, that were in the fridge, and they just come out, just fluff them up when they get out, and you are going to just put in as much as you want. This is just going to be my portion right now, and then I'll do another one separately because my husband is gonna eat in just a little bit. So here we just did a couple, and we're gonna let it cook for literally 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes. There it is, cooked pasta. I'm gonna put my portion on the noodles, get my mushrooms, I kind of separate them, gravy and some meat, and it is my favorite stroganoff, and I hope you guys give it a try. It's so simple. Remember to at least double this recipe if you're cooking for more than 2 people.